So, hi everyone. Jamie Rogozinski here, founder of WallStreetBets. Question from Camille: did you get grilled by Congress like DFV? Can they do anything to WSB? And has Reddit threatened WSB? So, I did not get grilled by Congress. That was just DFV, and it was the CEO of Robinhood, and it was the head of all the hedge funds, and Citadel, the payment for order flow guys, and I was not a part of that. So just a simple no to that question. There, it's kind of an interesting dynamic where Wall Street Bets plays with all these different events that are taking place, mainly because it's a somewhat decentralized kind of organization. It's a social media group where people get together and they talk and they make decisions of how they want to do it. But there's no one person in Wall Street Bets that really controls or says what's going to happen or whatever, and even in DFV's value, even in his case, he was just a guy that was really enthusiastic about GameStop, and he made a ton of videos and things of that nature. But there's been a lot of people before him, and probably going to be a lot of people after them, that kind of rise to the spotlight and are kind of the face of any given event that's taking place. But that's the beauty of social network. That's the beauty of this collective intelligence of people that get together. It's kind of hard to pinpoint. So I wasn't with that, and I'm really not too concerned about being in the spotlight because once again, we're talking about doing freedom of information. People are just literally congregating as if you were sitting around a dinner table. When I was moderating Wall Street Bets, sometimes we would have things that happen that were kind of shady, like or flat out illegal. A lot of these things are almost none of them make it up to the light of day, right? This is what the moderation team actually does. These are things like insider trading or providing insider information or trying to do fraudulent actual pump and dumps, which have this really specific definition as to how they work, or other kind of regulatory issues. Like those things are tampered down. And as long as a group is not enabling any type of illegal activity, there's nothing wrong with it. The Wall Street Bets or any other forum online is protected under Section 230 of the Communications and Decency Act, which basically says, look, we're just a platform. People do whatever they want to do. It's user-generated content. If they want to break the law, it's on them, as long as the people that are in control aren't facilitating that illegal stuff. So as long as take care of these things, then there's really nothing to be overly concerned about. Can they do anything about WSB? If by they you mean Congress, I'm not sure they want to, right? Like what I saw in Congress was just a bunch of enthusiastic people on both the left and the right. You had AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who's the face of the left, and then you had Ted Cruz, who's very much on the right side, kind of agreeing with each other that says, hey guys, the retail investors are getting power and they're able to empower themselves. They're able to take responsibility over their financial actions. Finally, the 99% are able to stick up for themselves. And so Congress themselves, I don't know that they want to really do anything about WSB because it's just, or any form of retail trading, because the markets themselves generate their value from participants, right? The more participants, the more liquidity, the more valid the process of price discovery, which is just fancy talk for, how much are things worth. And that's value that the markets actually give to the world. And so as long as the more people that join and participate in the market, the better, the more productive the market can be. So, I don't think they want to do anything. The regulatory agencies like FINRA, the SEC, they might want to do something. I truly believe that what they do is good. They legitimize the market. They try to stabilize it. They try to make things fair for everybody, and they try to make sure that things run properly. They kind of lubricate the wheels of the whole system. So if the regulatory agencies were to come in, my anticipation would be that they want to improve the system, not really stop it. And by improve, we saw with GameStop what happened with Robinhood and many of the other brokerages, that they had to stop trading with GameStop and with AMC and with a bunch of other ones because of the entire back end system. You have the settlement process. When you buy and sell a stock, a lot of things happen behind the scenes, and a lot of those things take several days to take place. That leads to a series of events in which more money has to be put up and blah, blah, blah. I would hope that if the regulators were to come in, they say, okay, let's fix this whole back end system so that when you buy a stock, you have your stock instantly and you don't have to worry about this collateral requirements. And we don't have to stop trading in the future, right? The other thing would be to try and stabilize the volatility, right? If they say, look, our job is to have a functioning market and the market is doing really wacky stuff that it shouldn't be doing, that's a trickier to think to take care of, because how do you determine when something is wacky and when something is not? For example, let's say Tesla today decides to come up with a flying car, like a hover car, and the stock decides to just go crazy and it goes 10 times the price. That, mathematically speaking, that 10 times the price spike is something that's abnormal, that's not functioning properly, that's volatile, that's whatever, but it's perfectly justified because now there's a new valuation for the company. And so now you have a good reason for that. How do you mathematically determine when something's being wacky or when something is doing it with good reason? So in that same example, if Tesla doesn't come up with a new hover airplane or like a flying car, but people just go on Wall Street Bets and say, let's just buy Tesla and just, squeeze the shorts or whatever, and the price does the exact same thing, then the volatility profile is the exact same thing. It's just for a different reason. So unless the SEC wants to go in there and figure out why a stock is doing what it's doing for every single stock for every single minute of the day, and then make a subjective decision as to whether we should, halt trading for longer or whatever, it's just not their role to do that. And so I don't think they can do very much about that. I think what they'll probably want to do is to increase scrutiny. And I think they have done this to make sure that people that do participate in these types of short squeezes or this collective price movement efforts to take place, to make sure that there's nothing that's illegal. Like if it's one person that is paid by the company to initiate a short squeeze, that's against the law. And so I think they'll want to make sure that everyone that's playing with this is doing it fairly. So at the end of the day, if they do that, it's just going to legitimize the entire system even more, because that means that SEC or FINRA, they say that we put our seal of approval. This is allowed to happen. We just need to make sure these are the rules and communicate those clearly. And the next question is, has anyone has Reddit threatened WSB? That is a really complicated question. So I'll have to ask you to elaborate, because there's a lot to read into that. So Camille, if you want to expand by Reddit threatening WSB. And while you do that, Reddit likes WSB, right? Like they like the fact Reddit has always been a fan of trying to empower the people and just democratize everything. And they like the fact that Wall Street Bets has been involved with just the empowerment of the 99% of the people, right? That the retail, the individuals, at the end of the day, they want to have control of whatever they're doing. And so Wall Street Bets subreddit has helped promote that. But to be fair, also Wall Street Bets exists on all sorts of platforms, on Discord, and there's on Telegram, and it's on different social accounts like Instagram and Twitter and TikTok probably. And so there's that aspect of it. But there has been some friction between Wall Street Bets and Reddit for sure. So that's what I guess I'd ask for you to expand on that. I think that Wall Street Bets, one of the things that it's really started to create is a conversation around who's able to be in the market and who's able to kind of voice their opinion, right? Previously, at least when I started getting into the market like 10 years ago, you had significant barriers to entry to play with the market. So if I wanted to open, at that point, there weren't free brokers, but there were these discount brokers. So you could pay, I forget what it was, like, $1 or $2 for trading stock options and a couple of dollars for trading stocks, but they made it relatively easier than the previous solutions. And I'm talking about 2012. I forget how much you needed to fund an account, but a few $100 at least. And then the margin requirements continue to be the same because that's a regulatory, not a broker thing. But as soon as the markets became more accessible to people in the form of commission free, also instant funding really helps, because previously you also had to wait a couple days for your money to clear. Still is the case with several brokers, but some of the other brokers allow you to do it instantly. You have fractional share purchases, things like Amazon, which trades at several $1,000s a share. If you want to be able to buy that stock with an account size that is small, then you can actually just buy a little piece of it, and you still get to mimic that price in your portfolio. So a lot of these things kind of culminated together, and we saw a lot of growth in retail over the past decade. Every year, at least on Wall Street Bets, you'd see the size of that community double. But I've also done a study to see Robinhood, and Robinhood, pretty much the growth record, the growth track record has been the same. You have the pandemic where a lot of people get stuck at home, and a lot of times lost their source of income, lost their entertainment. All the sports were canceled, and so that just accelerated a trend which was already there and very pronounced over the past decade. And so a lot of people, that growth rate that was seen last year, and then once again this year is continued, has been really spectacular. I was just on a session with the CEO of eToro, which is a broker. It's an international broker that does have presence in the US, and so you can buy commission-free stocks just like with Robinhood, but you can also buy them internationally, which is interesting because they use a different mechanism for doing that. People that are outside the US are able to buy them. He confirmed the fact that there's just been this ridiculous growth that continues to be sustained even as the world starts to go back to normal. A lot of countries are still in the same situation, but a lot of countries have returned to some semblance, if not complete normalcy. And so what you have now is this group of people, these retail traders, that are able to collectively have a seat at this huge poker table, where previously it's like, no, you have to be Goldman Sachs or you have to be JP Morgan. And this is a really exclusive club. You don't know what you're doing. You can be a little nobody and we're just going to run all over you. But now these little nobodies kind of got together and held hands, and they're saying, well, now we have a seat at the table too. And we don't do discounted cash flows, by the way. We just do memes, right? We don't do any of the typical analysis that you're going to see from these more traditional institutions. And you're just going to see people saying, let's go to the moon. And that's kind of cool, because now these funds have to take notice of what's happening on social media, on Wall Street Bets, on the different mediums that exist. That's a question from Serena. Hi, I'm interested in how you came up with the Wall Street Bets idea. Also, how did you push growth in the beginning? So Wall Street Bets, I started Wall Street Bets when I was in my early 30s. At the time I was single and didn't have any kids. I just lived by myself. I had a dog, but I had a really good paying job that provided, I had a 401k and my typical retirement fund through that employer, but I had money laying around, and I didn't really, wasn't really interested in spending it on anything that was superfluous. And so I decided I'm going to invest this money, or I'm going to try and put this money to work in a way that's riskier. High risk, high return go hand in hand. So I said, I'm going to figure out a way to turn a few $1,000s a month into millions of dollars so that I can retire by next year. And so I'd go on different places, and there was a lot of online forums, and you'd kind of have two categories. You had the professional trading community. These are people that do trading as a craft, as a profession, and they have really disciplined, and it takes a lot of hard work, and it is really complicated, and you have to learn about this. Sometimes you see this as people that do technical analysis, meaning like chart formations. They'll see patterns and how the prices move and try to make predictions from that. Some of them are more sophisticated, some of them have algorithms, but it is a difficult profession to get into. And then on the other side, you kind of have the traditional investors, which says, all right, I just want to diversify. I want to put my money into relatively safe and diversified asset classes, low commissions, blah, blah, blah. I want to be able to keep up with inflation and then retire comfortably in 30 years. So when I go in there and say, hey, I want to talk about whatever, Netflix, because they're going to start making their own TV shows, right? This is 2012, when I don't think they were doing that. and I would go into these investing communities on Reddit or on different places. They'd be like, no, don't try and pick a stock. You cherry pick it, you're going to lose. And they threw statistics at me, whatever. And I said, no, I'm cool with losing it. I get the risk return. I'm hoping to make a lot of money. And if I lose it, I lose it. It's just, I can afford it. And not being able to find a place, I just created WallStreetBets. I just went on Reddit and I called it WallStreetBets because I wanted to push away any of the critics at the door. Anyone that would show up to WallStreetBets and says, hey, that's really risky. Then I could say, dude, did you see what this place is called? It's like a casino. So if you want to be more conservative, go somewhere else. And so that's kind of how it got created. How did it grow? In the first couple of weeks, I would just, I'd announce it on a couple of the other forums like stock market, investing, and there's a bunch of other little ones. And then by itself, maybe I got like 500 followers or 1,000 followers that first month. And then it started doubling every single, it just doubled in size every year by itself. People on their own promoted it. And obviously, I think that's a reflection of how many people are interested in doing the same thing. Question from Tamlin. What do you think of the potential for censorship-resistant decentralized trading protocols, such as Vega Protocol? Look, I love it. I made a mistake by not allowing crypto. Sorry, I don't think I made a mistake early on when I started WallStreetBets. I said, look, let's just stick to stocks. We decided not to do penny stocks because the susceptibility to manipulation and the regulatory headaches could be bigger, and there's other more specialized kind of asset classes that I just didn't really feel like. So we focused on stocks, and Bitcoin was born around the same time, and it was really hard. It was not what it is today. It was just this idea of this currency for exchanging of goods and services. And if you wanted to buy Bitcoin, it was really difficult, and you had to really be really into that space. And so I made that decision early on, and I didn't revisit it. And so that's when I made the decision. So that's when I made a mistake, not to go back a few years later and say, okay, now Bitcoin, and by then many other cryptocurrencies were around and a lot more mainstream with proper liquidity and proper brokers and proper way of getting involved with them. And I should have allowed it, because it's now painfully obvious how those two worlds are going to collide. And so, and I've just recently started learning about the power. I've always known about the potential, but now I've realized what's actually out there, and I'm baffled by it. Right. So now I'm going to get into your question. These decentralized platforms, I think they're absolutely wonderful, and they're wonderful not because let's stick it to the man and let's, the central banks and, F them, whatever. It's more the stability and the efficiency of these things can be a heck of a lot better. What we saw with GameStop and they having to stop trading in the US with many, if not most of the brokers, was because they were using this archaic back-end technology and procedures. If you have this decentralized system on the blockchain or, and the cloud or whatever around the world, then all of a sudden you can fix a lot of these issues, and you make things a lot more transparent, a lot more efficient, a lot more stable, right? Like I have seen that on periods of volatility, these things are still kind of ironing out their kinks. I noticed that a week or two ago, when this Bitcoin started crashing like crazy, it was really difficult to get on a lot of things. So still have some work to go in order to really compete with the NASDAQ. But I think what's possible is insanely cool. Like I am now a huge crypto fan of the technology in general, not necessarily Dogecoin or whatever. Question from Door. Seems to be a lot of FUD on ESB. Pump and dumps, blah, blah, blah. Runs on Citadel. Positioning, change behavior. Separate sub stacks exchange distributed lots of companies. This has gotten too big. Well, who knows what's happening with Clove? Is losing ability to move altogether. Look, you have with any market opportunities of people that are going to find a way to make a quick buck, and there will be pump and dumps, and there will be these rug pulls or whatever. Like I said, I'm relatively new to this, so I don't have the history that most of the crypto people do have, but it seems 2017 was a rough year for the crypto community, and a lot of people have gotten wiser about it, and it continues to happen, but it's, I think it's part of a healthy growth stage. I think that It's unfortunate that it happens because people will lose their money in the process, but people will wisen up. People did from 2017 till today, but there's a lot of newcomers that weren't around back then, like myself, that are just now learning about it. So you will have unfortunate events where people take advantage of it, but I think that is also being kind of addressed on two fronts. On the regulatory standpoint, right? Like the U.S. is getting slowly but surely getting involved with regulating these things. So I'm talking about ICOs and IDOs and blah 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 to make sure that they have to pass certain type of a scrutiny before they list, and that'll legitimize it. And the community itself, exchanges like Coinbase and Binance and I forget what all the exchanges are, but they're starting to say, hey, we're not going to allow these crappy coins on our exchange. We're going to audit them first. We're going to have to approve them. That's going to really help. Granted, these exchanges aren't decentralized, but it's a step in the right direction. And so then people will wisen up and say, okay, if I'm going on Uniswap or on PancakeSwap, I know that what I can get is pretty much anything. I can even get a coin that is called Bitcoin, but it's not actually Bitcoin or whatever. But people will slowly start learning the difference. For now, I think it's helpful that Uniswap or PancakeSwap or these things are a pain in the butt for a newcomer to use. They're not intuitive at all. It becomes intuitive once you've used it, but somebody that's never ventured in, like my parents, if I say, hey, go on PancakeSwap to get some of this shitcoin, they're not going to be able to pull it off. So thankfully, there's kind of like a natural barrier there that's going to help mitigate the risk with those decentralized ones. But I have full faith. The community, the crypto community has done a tremendous job over the years at fixing a lot of the problems with it, and they've done it extremely well, very creatively, and so I have no doubt that they'll continue to improve it. 100% agree. This is Tamlin again. Oh yeah, 100% agree with the efficiency argument, but also I'd like the idea of global liquidity pools can be open up accessing dexes. Absolutely. Look, this is the reason why I did switch back into, or I decided to open my eyes towards crypto was because, look, I get a lot of offers, and I've had them throughout the years. A lot of coins that say, hey, Jamie, come and help us promote this coin or whatever. And I've said no to hundreds, if not thousands of them. And I've also had ETFs that have come up to me and said the same thing. These are exchange traded funds. And as time went by, I was like, nope, not interested. Even if I can make a lot of money from them, not interested because it's not really contributing. These guys came across this group that was called the WallStreetBets. They wanted to call it WallStreetBets DAO or DApp, Decentralized Application. They said, no, look, we're going to marry crypto technology with what do you call it? Regular mainstream Wall Street finance, right? And we want to create some of this social ideas where you have people that come together and they talk about stocks and they vote about, like they vote on what they want to invest in, whatever. And we'll create these ETPs, which are like ETFs, which are just baskets of collateralized assets, right? So you say, okay, I want to create a basket of crazy investments, and I want to put in Tesla, and I want to put in Bitcoin, and I want to put in Tesla that trades in the US and Bitcoin that trades on the blockchain. And then you have Samsung that trades in Korea. In the US, you can't have a single ETF that does all those things, but on the blockchain you can, and they're tokenized, meaning they're collateralized. Somebody actually buys the underlying stock. So you participate in the market. But it's decentralized, so it's absolutely giving it access to it. I currently cannot buy Samsung right now. Maybe if I really wanted to, I could figure out how to do it, but I don't feel like figuring out how to do it. I don't feel like going through the trouble of getting that done. But on the blockchain, you can do that, at least in theory. Well, they've already done it in practice with certain stocks, but it's only going to continue to improve. So I think it's absolutely wonderful that I'm living in Mexico and somebody can be living in Singapore and somebody can be living in whatever, Indonesia. All of them can buy a little bit of Apple and a little bit of LG and a little bit of Bitcoin, like all these things packaged up into one place. And I think that is absolutely wonderful because the once again, go to this liquidity, the more participants, the better everything works and the more productive and the more resilient. I had a guy that owns several biotech companies, and he said to me, hey, this is a really crappy space to be in because we make medicines and we use the market the way we're supposed to use the market, which is to raise capital, right? These are capital markets. in order to reinvest into R&D or whatever. And when we're about to do a stage 1, whatever, clinical trials, who knows, whatever, these funds would go up and they would extort these guys and they would short the stocks and inhibit their ability to make these medicines because now they can't raise as much money. Then these big funds would buy the equivalent of what's called stock options. They would do it with warrants, these leverage tools, and then they would let these results come out and the stocks would probably go up and then they would make a lot of money. But in the meantime, they hurt the companies. And he said, now, because there's a lot more participants and if we have the good fortune of being mentioned on Wall Street Bets, then these funds can't do anything because it's like, yeah, you want to short this company? Good luck. They're talking about us on Wall Street Bets. So that manipulation is inhibited by the people, right? Just by individuals that are saying, nah, I think this company is going to make a great medicine and we're going to buy it because of that. Or they could also decide that this company is a crappy company and they want to short it. But more people, more legitimate these prices become. Questions from Kitty. With the increasing accessibility to people, so how do you see the future of retail trading? I don't understand the first question. With the increasing accessibility for people, I mean, the increased accessibility is great. Right? That's what's providing all these great things to happen. People can be empowered. They can collectively become empowered. They can become more knowledgeable. When you buy a share in BlackBerry, you go in there and you start reading the news about BlackBerry because you're excited about it and you want to see what the news is and about their new. Maybe you'll even go out and buy the phone for BlackBerry. Who knows? And wait, what is this thing about the quarterly earnings? And what is this thing about the interest rate? And why does the interest rate affect my BlackBerry stock? The next thing you know, they're like, becoming self-informed about a lot of stuff. So I think that that's really great, no matter what happens. How do I see the future of retail trading? I see it increasing. I see the marriage of regular finance, mainstream Wall Street finance with blockchain. Like with crypto, I see those lines really starting to blur. You can do really creative stuff with crypto. Let's, for example, put in some NFTs into the mix, right? Like if you want to invest and you have some stocks in the US and you have some cryptocurrencies or maybe, actual fiat currencies all wrapped up into this thing. You could also, for example, own a fraction of a Picasso using NFTs or whatever, or a fraction of real estate, a little bit of an apartment if you wanted to do that. And bundle all that into one little product with a symbol that trades like a regular stock, like an ETP. Then people can go out there, they can do that, and all of a sudden they're invested in U.S. stocks, cryptocurrencies, real estate in a different country, and in artwork, right? And all because you have one share of this little thing called whatever they choose to call it at the time. So I see a lot of that stuff really blurring and not having a distinction, and a lot of these asset classes kind of coming into the same thing. At the end of the day, things in general, before crypto existed, before the stock market existed, things are valued based off of what people value them. And whether this is bananas, or fruits or fish or whatever, trees, and what people would barter with stuff, or spices in the Middle East, whatever, and they would say, I'm willing to give you some of these things for some of those things. And they would say, well, okay, I'll give you one of these and you have to give me 10 of those because these are harder to find. And that's how you start establishing these prices. And then, if I live in Mexico now, and when you're in Mexico, when you pass the salt to somebody, you don't actually hand it to them. You put it down on the table next to them, and the next person picks it up. And I asked about why that is, and it turns out it predates back to these days when they would trade salt, and you would take your little bag full of salt and you would hand it to the other guy. If the salt falls during the handoff process, the salt falls on the ground and now it's useless. You can't do anything, and they couldn't determine whose fault it was, and so then they put the bag down, and the other guy has to pick it up. Why is this relevant? Because now, talking about storing value, you get to now store the value of these things on the digital crypto, on the cloud, on the blockchain. You can now bundle value of stuff, which is a little bit of a stock market, a little bit of your house, and I have an account, which is like a level 3 video game, something or another. yeah, so I think that's a wonderful thing. So anyway, so I think that it's great that you get to store these alternative uh, different sources of value storage in general. And then trading, if you're talking about trading as a speculative uh, activity, then that's going to continue to evolve as well. It is speculation at the end of the day. Whether you're an HFT, these are high frequency trading computers or algorithms, or whether you're Warren Buffett that does these elaborate discounted cash flow analysis, or whether you are technical analyst doing traders, or if you're a meme stock trader, like all these people, they come in there and they're all pretty much guessing, and all of them are hoping to make money, and some of them are better at defining the risk and being able to define the return. Some people are just really having fun as if they were in a casino. And with that, I believe our time is up. So if there's any more questions, I could take one more. And if not, then I want to thank all you guys for your time and bid you farewell and good luck. So thanks a lot, everyone. This was fun, and enjoy the rest of the cogX festival.